Hey everybody, welcome back to Football Talk with Vinny. In today's video, I'm just going to give you my thoughts on the NFL draft. Now, obviously from the title of the video, it's why I don't like the NFL draft. So anyways, it's not that I don't like the draft or anything like that. Like I said, we'll get into it in a second. It's more just like the overall thought process of just the draft in general and how people kind of perceive the draft. Now, a lot of people, get, I think, too overhyped about the draft and all the players. I think not enough people realize that, I think there's a lot of guys that are drafted in the first round that don't contribute as much as the average fan actually thinks they do. And we'll get into that in a minute, but really the basis is I just don't think a lot of fans understand how hard it actually is to hit on your first round picks. Now, with that being said, obviously when you're building a roster, and you're having to use salary cap, and you're having to, kind of like build it out and make a championship level roster, you do have to hit on some of your draft picks because that's where you get players that are going to be paid way under what their performance level is, and that, money you save towards those drafted players lets you spend on other positions that help you build an actual good balanced roster. But again, with that being said, I think there are, it's an ultimate team sport, so there are multiple ways to win. I think a lot of people are kind of disagreeing with the way the Rams are trying to run their organization. But to me, yes, they haven't won a Super Bowl, but I think it's working, right? They haven't drafted a first round pick in like 6 or 7 years, right? And they don't have their next first round pick for the next 3 or 4, right? It's going to be like a decade since they drafted a first pick. I think their last one was Jared Goff, and that was 2016, I want to say. Now obviously that's a very difficult way to win because when you keep giving up your first round picks, the players that you acquire for those first round picks, they have to be playing at elite levels. So like Jalen Ramsey, he is still an elite corner, so you're really not losing anything there because the 2 first round picks that you gave up to acquire Jalen Ramsey, you're probably not going to get back the same in return as those 2 draft picks, right? I think if you were to look at who Jacksonville is about to take with now, I believe this should be their 2nd first round pick from the Rams, they're not going to get as much as the player that Jalen Ramsey is. Now, obviously, like I said, it's kind of difficult to build a roster that way, but I also think it's not as easy to build it out just through the draft as people think. And like I said, we'll get into it in a second. I think when you actually go back a couple drafts and you read the list of players that were drafted, it's roughly about 50% even are like starting caliber players 6, 7, 8 years into their career, right? So obviously that's not really what you're thinking of when you draft a player in the first round. Now, if you're not a huge football fan, this video may confuse you because what I'm gonna do is, again, I'm gonna go back 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 years and just look at the draft results, just the first round, and we're gonna see how many players were and are starting caliber players, and did they make a Pro Bowl, and that kind of stuff. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna start with the 2014 NFL draft. The only reason why I'm doing that, because that was about 6 years of play. So that means all these players, if they were good enough to get a second contract, they would have gotten a second one. Okay, I'm gonna be looking down at my phone, my other phone, while I'm reading these, so let's get right into it. Okay, so Jadeveon Clowney, you could definitely classify him as a good player, right? He's made a couple Pro Bowls. I don't think he was the pick they thought he would be at number 1, but still a great player. Number 2, Greg Robinson. He was an offensive tackle for the St. Louis then Rams. He was out of the league in like 2 or 3 years, so obviously a bust there. Blake Bortles at 3, not really what you're looking for. I would think you would classify that as a bad player. Sammy Watkins at 4 is a little interesting. I think there's maybe a case could be made. You could put him in the starting caliber range, right? He was okay for Buffalo, not great. He went to the Chiefs, obviously, and he's essentially their 3rd option. Sometimes their 4th, depending on if you think McCole Harmon is their 3rd option. And again, if you pick number 4, you're projected to be a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver, and Sammy Watkins has never made a Pro Bowl. So I think you could chalk that one up as a maybe. But then you have Khalil Mack, certainly a great player. Jake Matthews, he's been good. He's made a Pro Bowl. He did get a second contract, so he's that starting caliber range. Mike Evans, obviously very good. Justin Gilbert for Cleveland, not really a great player yet. He's still, I believe, on the roster, just hasn't made a huge impact. Anthony Barr from Minnesota, good player. Taylor Lewan, good player. Oh, I skipped one. Eric Ebron actually was 10 to Detroit. He's been good enough to be a starter in this league, right? Odell Beckham at 12, obviously very good player. Aaron Donald, excellent player. Kyle Fuller from Chicago, good player. Ryan Shazier, unfortunate what happened to him with the neck injury, but he was a good player while he was playing. Zach Martin, obviously, he's made a bunch of all-pro teams. CJ Mosley, very good player. He opted out last year, so no one saw him play, but he's a good player. Calvin Pryor for the Jets, kind of underwhelming. Juwan James for Miami, an offensive tackle, underwhelming as well. Brandon Cooks for New Orleans. Now, he hasn't made a Pro Bowl, but we could put him in the starting caliber players. Clinton Dix for Green Bay. Now, he has made a Pro Bowl, but to this point, he's kind of barely, a starting caliber player. So we'll still add him into the list. Johnny Manziel, obviously not good. D Ford for Kansas City, good player. Darquez Denard, hopefully I said that name right, not really a great player. Jason Verrett, obviously injuries kind of ruined his career, but he has made a Pro Bowl and he has started over the last couple years, so that's been great. Marcus Smith, nothing really. Deion Buchanan, nothing for Arizona. Kelvin Benjamin from Carolina, he's been okay, kind of below average, not really even a starting caliber wide receiver at this point. Kind of is like that third, fourth option on a team. Dominique Easley, nothing. Jimmy Ward for San Francisco, not really that great. Bradley Roby for Denver, not really a starting caliber player. And then Teddy Bridgewater, obviously he had the injury, he was out a couple years. But I guess you could put him as like a starting caliber guy. So again, even if you look at that, we'll start from 32, right? So you got Teddy Bridgewater. We'll throw Calvin Benjamin in there. Jason Verrett, D Ford, Clinton Dix, Brandon Cooks, CJ Mosley, Zach Martin, Ryan Shazier, Kyle Fuller, Aaron Donald, Odell Beckham, Taylor Lewan, Eric Ebron, Anthony Barr, that's 15. Mike Evans, Jake Matthews, Khalil Mack, Sammy Watkins we'll throw in there, and Jadeveon Clowney. So that's 20 players of the 32. So even in a draft like that, 20 out of 32 picks, it's just about 2/3. That's actually a good draft, right? And you'll see in a second when I go over a couple other drafts. Again, if you look at that draft class, there was a stretch there from pick 9 to Minnesota all the way to pick 17 for Baltimore, where it was Pro Bowler after Pro Bowler after Pro Bowler. It goes Anthony Barr, Eric Ebron, okay, but then Taylor Lewan, Odell Beckham, Aaron Donald, Kyle Fuller, Ryan Shazier, Zach Martin, and CJ Mosley. Like, that is a long stretch of consecutive Pro Bowl caliber players. And like I said, as I go over different drafts, you actually won't see that kind of long stretch on any other draft class. But again, even with that draft class, there was 12 players of the 32 that either made actually no impact at all or very minimal impact. And again, there was about 2 or 3 of those players that I added in of the 20 that have been minimal impact players. Guys like Sammy Watkins, he hasn't made like a huge impact. Even a guy like Eric Ebron, he had the one good season with Andrew Luck his first year in Indy, but other than that, he's been kind of a average level starting tight end. And then Brandon Cooks and then Teddy Bridgewater. Both guys are, probably average level starters at their respective positions. Now, before we go into the video, just wanted to make it clear that obviously even the guys that were not able to start, they're still clearly better than 99% of the population. I don't want to be that YouTuber who talks about NFL players and how they suck. Like, when you say someone is terrible or bad, it's like, dude, they made it to the NFL. They're obviously really, really good. It's just when you put them in front of that same competition, they maybe don't do as well. Just wanted to throw that out there. Don't want to be one of those people who make YouTube videos from my bed and talk about how players suck. That's kind of weird. Okay, so next up, we'll just go another year into the future. We'll do the 2013 draft. Another year into the past with the 2013 draft. Okay, so this one starts with Kansas City selecting Eric Fisher. I guess at this point you can call him, a decent enough player to include him into a guy who's going to be a starter for 8+ years. In the beginning of his career, it didn't look like he was going to be good enough to even be a starter, but over the last couple years of his career, he's been able to at least start on that left side, so that's been good. Second pick, Luke Jokel, out of the league. Third pick, Dion Jordan. I think he's out of the league now with Miami. Fourth pick, the Eagles took Lane Johnson, Pro Bowl caliber, good player. Fifth pick, Detroit, Ziggy Ansah. I don't know if he's a starter anymore, but those early years in his career, he was, very good. He was making Pro Bowls, so we'll definitely add him into the list. 6, Barkevious Mingo. Probably not a good idea to add him. 7, Jonathan Cooper, the guard for Arizona. Not going to be a starter for an 8-year plus career. No Pro Bowls. Rams, Tavon Austin, not good enough. D. Milliner for the Jets, no. Chance Warmack for the Titans. I guess you could put him in the maybe category, but again, he's not really going to be a starter for an 8-year span, and he's never made a Pro Bowl, so I think it's going to be tough to count him, especially when you're talking about the 10th overall pick in the draft. DJ Fluker, kind of the same, I think, as Chance Warmack. Guy who's been a starter at some points in his career, kind of struggled early. Now he essentially is starting on kind of some bad offensive line teams. DJ Hayden from the Raiders is probably a no. Sheldon Richardson, good caliber player with the Jets. Star Latulele, good player for the Panthers. Kenny Vaccaro, good player for the Saints. EJ Manuel for Buffalo, another terrible quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. Jarvis Jones for the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's probably not a hit. Eric Reed for San Francisco, good player. Justin Pugh for the Giants, you could probably add him. I'd be okay with adding him as a starting caliber player. Kyle Long, yes. Tyler Eifert, yes. Desmond Trufant, yes. Sharif Floyd for Minnesota, I would say no. Bjorn Warner, probably saying his name wrong. That's definitely a no. I think he's actually out of the league right now. Xavier Rhodes, definite yes. Dante Jones for Green Bay, I think that's a no. I don't believe he was a starter for many seasons. DeAndre Hopkins, obviously yes. Sylvester Williams, no. Cordarrelle Patterson, he was drafted. He was put in as a running back. I guess we'll add him as a yes. Alec Ogletree, that one's tough because he has started, I think, for the Giants the last few past seasons. But obviously the linebacking core for the Giants has been one of the weakest in the league, so I guess you maybe potentially could add him. Travis Frederick, obviously a yes. Matt Elam for the Ravens, I would say no. So now, if you were to go through that list, you have Travis Frederick, Cordarrelle Patterson, D-Hop, Xavier Rhodes, Trufant, Tyler Eifert, Kyle Long, Justin Pugh, Eric Reed, Kenny Vaccaro, Star Latulele, Sheldon Richardson, Ziggy Ansah, Lane Johnson, and Eric Fisher. So that's actually 15 guys. And if you were to add some of the maybes, you have guys like Alec Ogletree, DJ Fluker, Chance Warmack, right? So that's about another 3 guys. So now that takes you up to 18. So again, that's roughly about half. If you even add those extra 3 guys in, you're just barely above half. And again, I'm not really making the bar like, oh, you have to make multiple Pro Bowls and be like this great player. That's literally about half of the first round draft picks in 2015 either made very little impact or like no impact, where they just didn't get on the field at all and just didn't, play even up to a starting caliber role. Now, very quickly, I don't want the video to be too long. Let me just get right into another year's draft. We'll just go 1 year into the past. And now we'll do the 2012 NFL draft. So now with this draft, these players have been able to play for 9 full seasons. So we'll kind of just take a look here. Some of these players' careers are probably about wrapping up, right? Unless you're a quarterback, playing 9-10 years in the league is actually a really long career. So you got the first overall pick, Andrew Luck. Definitely count that as a good player. Robert Griffith III, even though his injuries kind of derailed him, we'll count it as a good player still. They gave you a lot. Trent Richardson, no, I don't know if you want to count him. I mean, he had the 1 good season. Matt Khalil, the tackle for Minnesota, we'll count that as a good player. Justin Blackman, no. Morris Claiborne should be in that kind of maybe category. In the early part of his Cowboys career, he wasn't even really a starter. He barely found the field. but he has left and gone on to some other teams like the Jets and was able to be a starting caliber corner. Mark Barron, safety for the Bucks. That's probably a maybe player as well. Ryan Tannehill, yes. Luke Kuechly, yes. Stephon Gilmore, yes. Dontari Poe, yes. Fletcher Cox, yes. Michael Floyd, the receiver for Arizona, we'll count that as probably a no. He really only had one good season in Arizona with Carson Palmer. Michael Brockers, we'll say yes. He's starting to, come on as of late now. Bruce Irvin for Seattle, I guess that's another maybe. Quentin Couples, that's a no. Drake Kirkpatrick, maybe. Melvin Ingram, yes. Shea McClellan, no. Kendall Wright, no. Chandler Jones, yes. Brandon Whedon, no. Riley Reif, no. David DeCastro, yes. Dante Hightower, yes. Whitney Merciless, yes. He has started, so I guess we can put him in the yes category. Kevin Zeitler, for sure. Nick Perry, I would say not really. Harrison Smith, yes. AJ Jenkins, definitely no. Doug Martin, we'll say yes. As a running back, you just don't get 8 years, so it's tougher to say an 8-year career is a startable career, right? So we'll just say yes for him. And David Wilson at 32, that's a no. So in this draft, you have Doug Martin, Harrison Smith, Kevin Zeitler, Dante Hightower, David DeCastro, Chandler Jones, Melvin Ingram, Michael Brockers, Fletcher Cox, Dontari Poe, Stephon Gilmore, Luke Kuechly, Ryan Tannehill, Morris Claiborne, Matt Khalil, that's 15, Robert Griffin and Andrew Luck, that's 17 players. And then if you wanted to throw some of the maybes in, that's an additional 4 players. If you count those players, you're at 20. And again, the basis for this is, are they even a starting caliber player for 8 years? This, again, is not even factoring in, are they a first-round pick that made multiple Pro Bowls? Which is really, when you talk to just the average casual fan about who they're going to draft in the first round, their thoughts are drafting a player that's going to make multiple Pro Bowls, maybe some All-Pro teams. So again, and you can actually just, go into any year, just Google it and look for yourself at any year that I just don't go over. It's very difficult to actually have more than half the players that were drafted in the first round be starting caliber players where you're like, I would be okay if my team drafted a player that had a similar career path. So one last one, I'm going to go 15 years out. So we're going to do the 2006 NFL draft. The only reason why we're doing that is because it's 15 years, so it's a large number. And most of these players should be retired, maybe a quarterback or two. I don't know. I haven't looked at the list. I'm actually doing this with you guys as we record. So, quarterbacks could be playing for 15 years, so there may be a quarterback, but I doubt any other position would be on here. And the only reason why I'm doing it like this is so now we can now judge them now that their careers are officially over. So the first pick, you got Mario Williams. We're definitely going to add him. Second pick, Reggie Bush, we'll add him as well. He didn't actually make a Pro Bowl, but he started for several teams throughout the course of his career, so that's good. Vince Young, we'll give a yes to. He didn't really start for a long time, but those first couple years in Tennessee, he was good. If we're going to give RG3 the nod, we got to give it to Vince Young as well. So you got DeBrickashaw Ferguson at 4. That's a definite yes. AJ Hawk at 5, we'll count that as a yes as well, right? Didn't make any Pro Bowls, but did start for a long period of time for the Green Bay Packers. Vernon Davis, that's a yes. Wow, this is a crazy draft. First 6 picks were all yeses. Michael Huff at 7. I don't think I would count that as a yes. Dante Whitner, though, is a yes, so that's 7. Ernie Sims, no. Matt Leinart, no. Jay Cutler, yes. Haloti Ngata, yes. Cameron Wembley, I'm going to say no for him. Broderick Bunkley, definite no. Ty Hill, no. Jason Allen, I think it's a no. I don't believe he started for a long time. Obviously, this is going back 15 years now, so I'm just going based off of memory. Chad Greenway, he did make a Pro Bowl, so I'll say yes for him as well, for sure. Bobby Carpenter, a Cowboy, we're going to have to say no for that one. He did start for a year or 2, maybe 3, but that's about it. Antonio Cromartie, though, that's a yes. Tom Bahali, that's a yes. Lawrence Maroney, he was good for a year or two, but the running back position is weird. You usually just don't have long, sustained careers. So let's just give that one a yes, right? We're just going to be more lenient for the running back position. Manny Lawson, no. Davin Joseph, yes. Jonathan Joseph, the corner for Cincy, yes. Antonio Holmes, yes. John McCargo, no. D'Angelo Williams, yes. Mercedes Lewis, yes. Nick Mangold, yes. Joseph Adai will say yes as well. Kenny Jennings, no. And Matthias Kiwanuka for the Giants, no. He had that good year, I think, that what they won their second ring, but definite not. This was actually a crazy draft. I feel like there's a lot of players here. So even with all those players, I actually count 20 players. So again, you're right around that 15 to 20 range in all the 3 drafts or 4 drafts that I went over. Now, obviously, the draft is important, right? You do need it to be a successful team. You are going to have to hit on some picks. And obviously, the first round is not where the draft ends. You do have 6 other rounds to go. I just want to kind of make this video because, again, the casual fan, right? That's kind of what my channel is kind of geared towards. I want to try to help people that are kind of casual fans kind of get into the game. Like I said, hopefully this video is not like a downer video for you. It's more just like a realistic one, right? So for me, when it comes to the NFL draft, I don't follow it as much because in my mind, kind of the way I look at it just from watching football for so long is I don't really care who my team picks. The only thing that matters at the end of the day is, does the player my team picks, do they perform? Are they a good starting caliber player? Right? And just based off of factual numbers, right? Just going based off of previous drafts, there's a good chance that about half of these first round picks are going to do almost nothing and be out of the league within 3 to 4 or 5 years. So when you take that into consideration, right? I don't get really overly hyped when it comes to the NFL draft. Because again, even if you're picking in the top 5, if I were to just go back over that list and just read off those top 5 picks, there's a bunch of guys that were just complete busts where they did absolutely nothing. And some other guys that maybe had a year or 2 that were great. But if you're picking a guy in the top 5 and he only has a year or 2 that's great, that's still a failure of a pick, right? When you're picking top 5, right? A great example is Vince Young and Robert Griffith III, right? They both came in, they both, I believe, won Rookie of the Year, and they had very good early portions of their career. But when you take a quarterback with the top 5 pick, you don't hope that you get a player for 4 years that plays good. You hope you get a guy for 10 to 15 years that plays good. So the fact that you only got a guy for 4 or 5 years, even though RG3 was really good and Vince Young were really good in the early part of the career, I mean, I think if you would ask fans of those teams, those picks go down as, you know, maybe not wasted picks, but definitely the hype that was around the player did not live up to the production that they gave you on the field. Now, obviously in RG3's case, he got injuries that kind of derailed his career, so that's very unfortunate. But still, you know, players get hurt, and that unfortunately is part of the game as well. But with that being said, obviously the draft is right around the corner now, so I will have a mock draft coming out. I figure everyone in the world does it, so I might as well jump in and do it as well. But yeah, I just want to kind of go over some drafts because I think people don't do that, right? Everyone kind of gets enamored with this year's class, and then what happens is slowly over time as the new classes come in, we forget and we don't even look 2, 3, 4, 5 years back to see, okay, well, what were the players that were actually good in those drafts? What were the players that were bad? And what is like the success rate? So really, again, when you kind of break it down, it's roughly about 50%, right? Now, obviously some of these classes that I went over had, you know, closer to 20 players, but if I sat here all day, there could be a lot more videos I could do, or I could sit here a lot longer and go over some more drafts, and I promise you some of them will have 10-ish players that are starting caliber. And again, the barometer for success for some of these draft picks was very low, right? I didn't even include players that made Pro Bowls, and I didn't even include players that were, you know, probably ever at any point in their careers top 10 at their own position, right? But, you know, the barometer, like I said, was just you have to be a starter on your team for 5, 6, 7 years-ish, right? We even included some guys like Sammy Watkins who, you know, again, he's not really a starter, right? Like at the wide receiver position, it's a little difficult because you start 3 to 4 receivers, right? And if you're a team like Kansas City where you pass it so often, they probably run 3 wide receiver sets 60 plus, 70 plus % of their plays. So he's technically a starter, but he's clearly not the number 1 or even the number 2 option in their offense. So even a guy like him, you could easily exclude him actually from the list and say he's not really good enough to be, on that list, especially if you take into account where he was drafted. But that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully it wasn't too much of a downer video for you guys. Again, I just kind of wanted to give you my thoughts on the draft, right? And the reason, like I said, why I wanted to make the video is, a lot of the times when you listen to like sports talk shows and all that, they always talk about draft capital like it's gold, right? Like, oh, look at all this ammunition that these teams have, right? Like Miami and the Jets, right? They have so many draft picks, but it's like, if the success rate of the first round is roughly 50%, that means when you have all those picks, you are likely to only hit on 50% of them, right? So if you look at the Jets, for example, they have 4 first-round picks in the next 2 years. You're likely to only hit on 2 of those 4 picks. And as I read off some of the players, some of the hits could just be a starting caliber player, not even like a franchise-changing, multiple Pro Bowl, all-pro type of player. It could just be 2 starters for the next 5, 6, 7 years. So, like I said, that's the only reason why I want to kind of make the video, is just to kind of show you that, hey, just because you have a lot of draft capital doesn't necessarily mean you're going to, over the next 3 to 4 years, build a crazily good team. It is very difficult to hit on those picks. And again, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button and also subscribe if you're not. I'm almost at 10 subscribers now, so that's pretty cool. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward. I think my next video probably will just be my mock draft, so I look forward to making that. That might take a little longer, but I have to do some research. I want to come out with a good and a realistic video for you guys. Don't want to just, cut and paste names that I've seen on other mock drafts. So give me a few days to make that, and that will be out too as well. Thank you guys so much.